like restart like reignite my hot water tank, but I gotta wait till that's completely dry. So be cold showers for the next couple of days.
That's such a nightmare. Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? That's just living where I live. Like a lot of us don't have like a lot of us use sump pumps over here, and it's just man, something goes bad with the sump pump, man. But you know, like I said, it could be worse, man. It could be worse. There's a lot worse things happening in the world than a couple inches of water in my basement.
It's still frustrating though.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Especially like I went down there and just as soon as I got to the bottom step, I was like, oh, not again.
Where do you keep your pump? Is it in the basement?
Yep.
Because
It's just like it's in a little pit that's down there.
yeah, we have,
So
well, when I was growing up, we called it the pump house.
yeah.
That's what my granny would call it anyways.
Oh, nice.
Like a little shed where we kept the
Man,
pump.
this one has been working hard for the last I don't know how many years, so it was about due for it to go out. All right. So I guess my Michigan insurance refund check came in handy. All right. It was like, man, the universe knows when I get some extra money.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I know my bike got stolen. I'm like, well, I guess I know where that paycheck's going.
Yeah, right. So it is it sucks, but on the other hand, I mean, I'm also grateful that I
Right,
that I
of
had
course.
that
Yeah.
that I had that laying around. So
For sure.
rainy day money. Wasn't raining, but it's still, water was coming from the ground. All right. So your annotated bibliography and proposals were due today. If you're still working on them, get them in. I looked in the assignment folder, and the ones that are in the assignment folder I've looked at, and well, the ones that were in there at about I say about 11 o'clock. If you just uploaded yours, I haven't looked at it yet, but there were two in there when I looked. And for those two who submitted, you know who you are. Those are good topics. Yeah, get started on your draft. All right, get started on your draft. And for the rest of you all, if you haven't submitted that, make sure you get it in ASAP, especially the proposal. If you're still working on the annotated bibliography, that's cool because we're still researching. But get that proposal in so I can see what you're writing about for this project. All right, but so far the topics have been good. So I'm anxious to see what we come up with. All right. And really today I wanted to talk a little bit about researching. And then Tuesday, Tuesday and then next week, I'll go into more, not Tuesday, today is Tuesday, Thursday. And then going into next week, I'll be talking more about like putting it to just putting it together, putting the draft together. Okay. So we're still in sort of the early stages of this. And as I said before, or maybe to another class, I don't remember. But choosing a topic for a project like this is, it's a bit of a challenge. All right. But, just keep going back to that original question, right? What do you care about? What's important to you? All right. Actually, Leisha, I was thinking about a discussion we had a while ago. Kansas, right? They won the national championship last night. But South Carolina, they won the women's championship a couple of days. Right. It was a couple of days ago.
They got nothing.
And
I was like, wow.
Of all places, I heard it on NPR, but I haven't heard it anywhere else.
Oh, it's on, well, probably because of like the feed that I follow,
Oh, yeah.
But I follow a lot of women's sports accounts and stuff. But yeah, there was the school doesn't receive any money So there's no incentive for the schools to invest in women's sports because they don't get anything back from winning like the championships.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
wild.
That could be a topic. But yeah, it's just there's tons of coverage, of the men's championship, but women's championship kind of went under the radar. And it was
It was really good though.
Yeah.
Like I
And
followed the last, from the Elite Eight on, and I was really impressed with well, I see like how they've come, right? I see like them bringing like Sue Burden and Diana Taurasi and having them like in a separate, viewing room. Like I could
Yeah.
see how that would draw in a lot of viewers.
Absolutely,
And
man.
so like I there's a lot more content than in years past.
Absolutely.
But
Then UConn finally let somebody else win.
I know. I mean, I told my fiance because she watched it for a few minutes with me, and I was like, "Listen, South Carolina didn't come to play. They have not been excited this entire tournament. They were
Yeah.
like, next,
Yeah.
like they were
Not intimidated by the big dogs, right?
just like, no, we're not going home without
Yeah,
this
man.
title
But yeah, okay, show our female sports some love, man. That was
for real.
that was pretty huge, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully, a lot of the women could have like careers beyond, beyond college if they want to keep hooping without having to leave the country. Like a lot of women, have to play overseas if they want to play professionally. But
Yeah.
males too, but but yeah, man, show them some love.
Almost all of them have to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But and if you look at the talent that comes out of, college, and then they've got like 80 roster spots for all the WNBA teams. So
Yeah. And I'm also interested in and this is something I'll look into myself, just like the number of scholarships women have available to them versus the number of scholarships available for male athletes.
mm.
All right. Very good. Okay. So that's a topic if you want to pursue it. All right. All right. So now we're still researching though. All right. And this is one of the most vital parts of this assignment because whatever you're talking about, to your audience, you're the expert, right? No matter the topic. And for your essay, you could be writing about something that you're well versed in, or something that you have an interest in but you're still learning about. I think regardless, whether it's something that you're very familiar with or something that you're still learning about, it's still in your best interest to do a good amount of research, on whatever you're writing about. All right. So research is critical. I also think it's critical, at this juncture in society where, there's kind of a distrust, of things these days, which is okay. I'm definitely from the school of question everything. All right, that's just how some of my teachers, instilled in me, right? Just question everything. But I also think that, a lot of times people misspeak when they say, "Oh yeah, I've done my own research." Okay, a lot of times they haven't, and that's because just societally we aren't that familiar with, what doing research entails, right? Sometimes we think doing research is, let me search the internet till I find somebody that agrees with me, right? And that's not good. It's detrimental. All right. So research, in an ideal world, it's just about finding the truth, or finding the evidence that, supports the truth, regardless of where we stand, philosophically or politically. All right. Well, science, man. Science doesn't care what we believe, right? Science is like, man, here's what we know based on the evidence. Okay. So when you research, right, you usually move in 3 stages. Okay. We're planning, going into exploring. So we're somewhere in the middle. All right, some of you may already be at exploring, but planning is picking a topic. What am I going to research? Okay, is it juvenile justice? Okay. Is it some issue involving firearms? All right, guns and stuff like that. All right. Is it mega churches? I don't know, whatever you're interested in. All right. So think about what you want to research. Okay. And then formulating a research question. I will get to what a research question is in a minute, but a research question can help you streamline your research. All right. And then develop a plan to answer your research question. A lot of times, what you'll find is when you come up with a research question, the answer to that question ends up becoming your thesis statement. Right? Let's just say if you're writing about like gun violence, and in the very early stages of your research, you just ask yourself the question, right? Do we have too many guns in the US? All right. And I'm not saying we do or we don't, even though we do. All right. But whatever your position is, all right. So the question becomes, right? Do we have too many guns? Then you can start your research from there. Okay. You can start your research from there. All right. Because then when you ask that question, you're going to get into the legalities of it. Okay. You're going to get into the history of it. All right. You're going to get into, maybe some of the aftermath of, the number of guns that we have in the US. All right. So from there, from that question, that's going to fuel your research, but it's also going to help you formulate a claim about your topic. All right. Now, when you're done planning, okay, now it's time to explore. All right. Time to explore. And what I mean by exploration, okay, you're in the library, the virtual library, or you can go to a physical library if you want. Campus is still open. All right, campus is still open. Of course you're looking online for things. All right, because that's what most research is done these days. I get that, and I'll give you some like some checks and balances that you can use, for researching materials online. All right, so you come up, you find this article, right? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, this is interesting. This is very informative, and in that article, another study is mentioned or some other research is mentioned. Go find that. Okay. And keep that process going. Soon you'll have a trail, right? A research trail. And now, honestly, you probably aren't going to use all of that in your essay. But again, part of your research is for material that you're actually going to cite within your paper. But also, some of your research is, again, just for educating you on whatever you're talking about. It's filling in those gaps of knowledge. All right. So again, back to our what I was talking about before about I don't know why this like that shooting in Sacramento. That's why guns were on my mind. All right, but
Mainly,
I just lost my train of thought.
hello, hello.
What are you saying now, Robert?
Yeah, mainly things to corroborate your topic, to corroborate
Yes.
with your message.
Yeah. Okay. That's what you're doing when you're looking for your research. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So you're as you said it perfectly, Robert. You're finding evidence to corroborate your ideas, but also again, you're educating yourself. Oh, this is what I was thinking. All right. If you're talking about, guns and gun control and all that good stuff, you're gonna have to look into the history, right? Look into the history of the Second Amendment. All right. And look into the history of that. Yeah. It's interesting. All right. But if you are, writing a paper of that nature, you're going to have to give some of that history. All right. So whatever you're talking about, make yourself an expert, or as much of an expert as you can become, in the next couple of weeks. I know sometimes it takes a lifetime to master certain things. All right. Or learning is like an ongoing process, definitely. So you planned, you explored, you got all this research. Now you evaluate. Okay. Do I have enough? Do I have credible evidence? Okay. A lot of times, I will conference with the student as I'm going to conference with you all once you get a rough draft in. And sometimes if the essays are a bit shorter than our target goal of page numbers, I ask, like, let me see your research. All right. Or, let's talk about your research. Most of the time, if the paper comes up a little bit short, it's because the research, came up a bit short. Another thing that you want to look at when you're researching, and this is critical. You want to look for research that supports your point of view. Definitely. Okay, definitely. You're going to need that in your paper. But you also want to look at evidence that's against you. Who's arguing against you? What's their rationale? Right? What's their rationale? Like just what we were talking about earlier, if we talked about if we were saying like women's sports, should get more support, right? Look at what the naysayers are saying. No, they get plenty of support. They get enough. Okay. Look at their reasoning, right? Because in your paper, that's going to give you something to argue against, right? So you could have a paragraph or several paragraphs that begin this way. Not all the same way, of course, but you know what I'm saying. Okay. While it is commonly thought that women's athletics receives adequate support, the reality is quite different. So within this paragraph, maybe talk about some of, like, when people say, women's athletics receive adequate support. Okay, talk about some of their reasonings and justifications, but also talk about how maybe some of that is misguided, right? Maybe there's some flaws, in the logic of the opposition. Maybe there's like inherent biases. Maybe it's based on like outdated.
Access.
Say it again.
The access.
Absolutely.
So, I'm like a person that I love to like read just like all the facts about whatever team, whatever I'm interested in. Like I want to read all the articles. I want to see all the videos.
Yeah.
And like Bleacher Report, they only have women's basketball.
Like we have a team.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to find like a post-game video or something like that, you have to really search, go through the school, like it's just not, there's just not enough there. So for people that would be interested in that, it's not available, which makes it seem like people aren't interested.
Yeah. I'm also thinking of I know they've added wait a minute, let me make sure. Because I'm a like I like video games, even though I don't play sports games that much.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Candace Parker was the first woman on the cover or on the case.
Nice. But also I was thinking, where's the other representation, right?
Yeah.
There's a ton of other like male oriented like sports games.
Yeah.
I have to look this up as well, but I wonder if women are in FIFA too.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know, man. Just know I used to whoop ass with Chun-Li in Street Fighter.
I used to love Street Fighter too.
Yeah, I know.
That was the only game I could play.
Yeah. But I have a friend, he especially if like in games where you can make your own character, like he always plays as a female. Just for those just for some representation, man.
That's awesome.
Wrestling. WWE wrestling has a lot of women.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
in the game?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
that's cool.
Mhm.
Okay, nice. Okay.
I'm a huge
So
wrestling fan. That's why I know that.
say it again, Robert.
I said I'm a huge wrestling fan. That's why I know that.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
nice. Nice, man. Wrestling. Okay. Man, my grandfather, whoo, you touch the TV while he's watching wrestling, over. Over. All right. Me and my brother used to do that. We used to make like the fake belts.
That's like the only sport I never really got into.
But wrestling, yeah.
Yeah.
Wrestling.
This past weekend was WrestleMania.
WrestleMania, yep.
Yeah,
What are you on,
it
like
was
WrestleMania
live.
40 something now, man? Because they've been having WrestleMania since I was yeah.
Yeah, 38. Yeah, WrestleMania 38.
Yeah.
It was live. It was a two-day WrestleMania.
Man.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's that popular now.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
There's a
cool.
good movie with Mickey Rourke, man. The Wrestler. That's pretty good. Right. It's just about amateur wrestling, but it's good, man. It's good. Okay. Now, all right, plan, explore, evaluate. Okay. When are you gonna do all this? All right. Only you know the answer to that question because you got your work schedule, right? If you got family obligations, you got that going on. You got other classes. Okay. At some point, you got to sleep, right? And if you're lucky, right, you can find time for a social life, right? So when are you going to do your research? My advice is not to wait until the last minute or just research as you're doing your draft. Now, sometimes when you're writing a draft together, excuse me, you might have to look something up real quick. That's fine. Or you may just come across an article that's interesting. That's okay. All right. But I mean, like, don't wait to get started on your research until the last minute, because I keep going back to this point, but to your reader, whoever's reading your paper, you know, you're the authority on whatever you're talking about. So it's best to just, you know, have a full, you know, just have like a comprehensive knowledge of whatever you're talking about. Okay.
And you
So
can ask
say it
people
again.
too, like, as far as like opposing views.
Mhm.
Like when I was working on mine, my fiance was like, you know, well, what if somebody says this, or what if somebody,
Yes.
you know, bouncing it off another person
Mhm.
to
And
give you different views.
I think like that's the point I was making earlier, Alicia, about just looking at the opposing viewpoints as you're doing your research, because in some ways it's like you're anticipating questions and answering them in your paper before they come up. All right. So I always tell students, like, if you're doing a paper, imagine that you're going to present this paper to an audience, and then there's going to be a question and answer session after, right? So if you can address those questions within your essay, or address those opposing viewpoints within your essay, you'll be better off. And then to be honest, you know, you can add a page or two to your essay, right? You can have a page or two just arguing against, you know, the opposition. Show your reader how they're wrong. Show your reader why they should accept your viewpoint, you know, instead of the opposition. Now, do you have to address every minuscule objection? No. But what are the main objections to whatever you're going to talk about? Okay. Whatever your topic is, right? Think of the main disagreements. All right, and try to address those, but you don't want to spend your entire paper just addressing the opposition. All right, and I think I showed this in a few classes. I can't remember if it was if I showed you all too, but procon.org.
Mhm.
All right, paying college athletes. I know in all the classes I'm teaching this semester, I know somebody's gonna write about this, paying athletes. Okay, and this is sort of changed. Like athletes can get endorsements now, but I'm thinking like if you're not a star, you're probably not going to get an endorsement. All right. So oh yeah, okay, let's click on this. Defund the police. All right. So I'm just on procon.org, and I'll show you a couple more of these in a little bit. Okay. I got his protest gear on, protest outfit on. Okay, neon, looking like a highlighter. It's all right. All right. So now, right, whatever you're talking about, if it's on this site, all right, the overview, background. So if you're writing this paper, when you talk about background, again, what does the reader need to know? Just some history. Okay. Now, maybe you're arguing this like they should be defunded or they shouldn't be defunded. Whatever your position is. This is the side for the pro, this is the side for the con. This side supports you, this side could be something that you argue against. All right, some of these points, right? You don't have to, some of these have a lot of cons, right? This is only 3, so yeah, maybe you can argue, you can fit those in your paper. All right, and then procon.org. This one, there's a lot of stuff on this one, but it's not as extensive as the ones I'm about to show you. All right, so now, and I put a video on like a recording on our D2L page. All right, but let me just go through it now. I'm on I'm on OCC's homepage, and you can go into any one of these categories. I'm just going academics because it's here, but then go to our library. And then you want to go find articles and databases. If you want to old school it and go books, look here. But if you want to research, if you want to do it online, go here. Find articles and databases. And then you want, both of these are good. Opposing viewpoints and points of view. Let's go opposing viewpoints. All right. Also, I think we went here before, but if you're still working out what you're going to write about. Okay. You go browse issues. Get the full list. Okay, there's a ton of issues over here. Okay, ton of issues. All right. Ton of issues, man. Okay. All right. So again, this one just gives you an overview of the issue and then gives you viewpoints. Okay. Yeah. Right. Gives you stuff to argue for, stuff to argue against. All right. Also, I do recall us looking at this. It's a great place for research.
Yeah, we did.
Because right, it has all this stuff down here. So if you can, or if you want to make again, I definitely want you to choose something you're interested in, but if you choose something from one of these sites, the research has been compiled already, and being that it comes from an academic library, like that conversation about whether it's a credible source has already been had. All right. So again, there's a ton of stuff, right? If we go show all, okay. 3D gun printing. Stuff. Okay. A lot of stuff. Right. Now. Okay. So what I was saying is just make sure you know what the other side's thinking. Okay. Make sure you know what the other side's thinking. Sometimes, especially in the US, we can find ourselves living in information bubbles, meaning we only get our information from the same source or sources, and usually it's a source that aligns with our worldview, right? There's nothing wrong with getting news from those sources, but also see what the other side's thinking. Okay. What the other side's thinking. All right. Set dates for yourself. Okay. I put dates, on the writing prompt, but those are just dates for the entire class. But set dates, meaning like, get your planner out, or, get your phone out. It's like, okay, I don't work Friday and Sunday, so I'm going to use that time to get some research in. All right. Essentially, give yourself time enough to do a thorough job. All right. Lost my slide there. All right. Now, research question. Right? The research question. Again, this is a question you're asking yourself. Finding a topic. Yes, you did it. Okay. But now, what about your topic? In another class, I just it's probably another reason why gun violence was on my mind. But I got an email from the students saying that they wanted to write about gun violence, in their final essay. And I'm like, cool, that's a good place to start. But now what about gun violence? Like, what's the argument? All right. So whatever you're discussing, make sure you're proposing an argument. And the way you get to that argument or your claim is by proposing a good research question. All right. So research questions are more than yes or no questions. Got to go beyond yes or no. Okay. So here's a topic. Private prisons in the US. That's a topic. Okay. Doesn't take a position or anything yet. It's just what I'm writing about if I was writing this paper. So, hey, Norwood, what are you doing for your paper? Private prisons in the US. Okay. Well, Professor, here's my research question. Are private prisons good or bad? Okay. It's not clear. It's not going to lead you to any good research, right? Because if I'm an investor in a private prison, they're probably good for me, unfortunately. Okay, because we keep, even though Biden is trying to phase them out, it's just hard to get things done like that. All right. But if I'm an inmate in one of these institutions, or possibly an employee in one of these institutions, it's probably a bad situation for me. All right. Now, are private prisons unconstitutional? Okay. That gives us,
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They don't go by the same rules or standards that the regular prisoners go by.
Absolutely.
So from my experience, you file a motion in one of the private prisons, it won't get heard because they can't go against the warden because the warden is not part of the process. He's not part of the system. So it's different. It's a whole different thing. It's really bad, really.
Yeah, and then you got shareholders, right? People who invest in these places. Then you got, a lot of times they're in a contract with the state, so they have to be running at a certain occupancy. Like they got to keep the beds full, right? So it's just so now, just as you said, Robert. So the question we that's our claim for this paper. Private prisons are unconstitutional.
Yeah, they are.
Right. That's a good claim, right? Because that gives you room to argue, right? So in your paper, you can discuss, okay, here's why. And some of the reasons you just said, right? Some of the reasons you just said, but also
go
ahead, Robert.
Yeah, you lose your rights to appeal. Yeah, you don't have those. Yeah, you don't have them. Yeah. In the private institutions, no.
Okay. And at the end of the day, you might be incarcerated, but you're still, a U.S. citizen, right? You still have certain rights that are afforded to you, or just as a human being, you have certain rights, that are afforded to you. Okay, so go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, the inmates like them because of the amenities. The private prisons have better amenities, better commissary, better beds. That's why they like them. But it's unconstitutional because you lose your rights. You can't file the motions. Like I was in a regular federal prison, and there was private federal prisons, but they couldn't file the same motions as we could because they wouldn't hear them.
Yeah.
The courts can't hear them. The courts don't have authority to hear them. There's no jurisdiction.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy when you really think about it. It's wild. It's deep. It's real deep.
I think
talk about it. Really got into it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much wrong with like prison for profit. Like that doesn't go together. It doesn't go together. Okay. And then it's for a private prison, it's not really in their best interest to attempt like rehabilitation, for the people serving time, because it's actually better for the prison, like if they come back. Right. So yeah. So if this is your research question, right? Are private prisons unconstitutional? Start looking into that. But also look at the people who say yes, they are. They don't violate any rights. Look at their reasoning. Okay? Because that's going to give you something to argue against. Because you can say, no, it's not like that. Here's what the research shows.
Yeah, check out their bank account. That's why they like it. Their bank accounts are fat. If they like a private prison, their bank account just was like that.
You're right. You're right. Okay, Bob Barker, man, Price is Right. Private prison investor. Right. Private prison, but a lot of people are invested in privatized prisons, man. All right. Yeah. But the Wu told us a long time ago, man, cash rules everything around.
Yeah, that's true.
That's so true. Okay. So now, okay, the clearer version, I keep meaning to change it because my research question was different. All right. The original was about video games, so I get rid of that. The clearer version addressed a specific aspect of private prisons. A strong research question should never leave any room for ambiguity or interpretation. So just make sure your research question is clear. Like, don't say it's something good or bad. All right, because both of those terms are subjective. All right, good or bad. So what are you like, if whatever your topic is, what are you saying about it? Is it our justice system, right? Is it women in sports? Is it women in science, women in politics? Whatever you're talking about, okay, that's cool for a topic, but your research question is going to help you formulate that claim. And remember, your claim it has to be debatable, okay? Because Robert, while you and I, may believe that these institutions are unconstitutional, somebody believes in them. All right, somebody believes in them.
Yeah, it's mainly private, the private sector, definitely the private sector. Yep. People that but then if they want to use, that's the problem with it. They don't understand it until it happens to them. If they end up in prison and they go to file a motion and the courts shoot it down saying, oh no, we can't have nothing to do with this motion, we have no jurisdiction, and they looking crazy like, why? Yeah.
And President Obama was trying to phase them out, and then our last president, he undid a lot of that work. So now I think President Biden is trying to reignite. Okay. Now, here's some research questions. Some of them work, some of them don't. Does economic prosperity from fossil fuel outweigh its environmental impact? Okay, it's a good question. Answer is no, but it's still something to research into. Okay, especially this is appropriate because they just the UN just released that report on climate change, man. They're saying we're getting closer to the danger zone, man. Getting closer to the danger zone. But we love fossil fuels too much. All right. Is increasing tuition making education cost prohibitive? Something else to look into. Okay, does it cost too much to go to college? Yes. All right. Does McDonald's or Burger King make a better burger? Okay. You can't use that one. Better doesn't really have a meaning. Better according to what? Okay. Is there a link between violent video games and violent behavior in children aged 8 to 14? Yeah. Okay. Not saying yeah, there is a link, but that's something to look into. All right. Yes, last one. I get, especially like in early stages of this, I get questions like this last one. Is technology good or bad? Okay. So my first question is always like, what do you mean by technology? Okay, is it fire, the smartphone, right? The wheel, right? All examples of technology. And then again, you know, just those terms, good or bad. Okay, what does that mean? Okay. So your research question should be just that, something that you got to look into. Okay, something you got to research. All right. Something that will also work for this assignment: interviews. Like if you're doing this, if a student is doing this, is increasing college, or excuse me, is increasing tuition making higher education cost prohibitive? Talk to some students. Okay. Should that be your only evidence? Of course not. But adding like some real human voices to your essay, that's a good look. Okay, that's a good look. All right, definitely humanizes your essay. Okay, so you can include, you know, an interview, and I when we get to drafting, I'll show you how to, like, if you do incorporate an interview, I'll show you how to like cite it properly. Okay, is there a link? Does economic prosperity from fossil fuel outweigh its environmental impact? Okay. And it's people in lower income communities get hurt the worst by climate change. Lower income communities, third world countries, those neither here nor there, but all right. Here, most of what we're going to be looking at is secondary research. All right. Secondary research is like if you go out and do your, like, I was about to say do your own research. If you go out and interview somebody, right? If you conduct some experiments, okay, that's primary research, right? If someone else does an experiment and you're writing about that someone else, that's secondary, right? So that's most of what we're doing. Like if you go interview somebody, that's primary research, but for us, we're mostly going to be relying on secondary research, which is fine. Journals, magazine articles, newspaper articles, online publications. When we were on our, like, in opposing views, you know, it gave you the options for, gives you the articles, excuse me, the options for, like, it gives you options for all those. Don't sleep on magazines, right? In news, because you can get some valid information from that. And then, like I was saying before, if it's in an academic library, the work of, you know, working through whether it's credible, that's been knocked out for you. So if you get it from a library, man, you can consider it safe to use. Right. This is what I wanted. Working thesis. What's that word again, man? Thesis statement. All right. So if you're in court, you got defense and the prosecution, right? The thesis, it's going to be, if it's the defense, is going to be guilty. If it's the no, if it's the defense, it's not guilty. If it's the prosecutor, it's guilty. Okay, then they have to present their evidence, right? So guilty or not guilty is the claim. Okay, so whatever your thesis statement is, that's your guilty or not guilty, meaning like that's your claim. That's what you want your audience to accept, right? So when we have our meeting, our one-on-one meeting, And I asked you, like I asked many of you for your causal analysis. Okay, I asked you, like, what's your paper about? Okay. The shortest and best answer to that question is your thesis statement. All right. And working thesis, you know, like I've explained before, just means that it's you got the idea, but you might just say it differently. Okay. Private prisons should be banned. That's essentially what this writer wants the audience to get from their paper. Should be banned. But here's some reasons. Okay, they cost taxpayers. They're inefficiently managed, and they utilize unethical practices. Okay. Or we can use the same wording we used before. They're unconstitutional. All right. Know your working thesis is subject to change as you see fit. Thesis statement is not set in stone until you turn your paper in. All right. You don't want to tinker with the idea too much, but the wording, you know, you can mess around with it. All right. When you're looking back over your own thesis statement, though, let's make sure it makes a debatable claim. And I think it's especially if you haven't submitted your proposal yet. But even if you have submitted, okay, in this early stage of this essay, try to make your thesis statement as simple as possible. Like if I just kept this one, private prisons should be banned, right? That's cool. Should be banned. Okay, should be phased out. Whatever. All right. So that's debatable. Because some people will say, you know, no, these facilities work just fine. Okay. In fact, there should be more. Okay. So make sure your thesis statement makes a claim, and a claim that is debatable, right? Don't state a fact as your thesis statement. Exercise is good for the body. What are you going to argue after that? Right? I think last week, like mental health is important. Of course it is. Yeah, definitely. Okay. But make that into a claim. Okay, mental health is important, but how can we do a better job as a society of addressing mental health? How can employers do a better job of addressing their employees' mental health? Right? How can schools, you know, address students' mental health, students and faculty's mental health, right? So don't just state a fact, you know, as your claim. Make sure it's debatable. Okay, make sure it's debatable, man. Right? That's important. A couple more things. All right. Finding sources, you know, the long and short of this slide is just, I try to resist the temptation to start with Google. All right. If you Google something, you're gonna get Wikipedia first, probably. Then you might get some advertisements, right? But you know, if you use an academic library, you don't get any of that. All right. And if you have to use Google Scholar. And you can get to Google Scholar from our library. Google Scholar is pretty much Google. It's just more academic oriented. All right. Think my computer's, oh, I was gonna say, I think I was asking my computer to do too much. All right. Oh, the thing about Google Scholar, I don't know if you can, it doesn't give you as many options as, say, something like this. Cookies, man. I just accept that without even reading it. That's a sign of the times, man. We're so used to seeing stuff like that. EBSCOhost is pretty good too. I'm gonna go back to where I was. Let's see. They don't want me to look at at voting interference. Is it doing this for all of them? Okay. Library's kind of tripping right now. Maybe I should have read that part about cookies before I clicked yes. All right. Well, what I was saying is Google Scholar doesn't give you the options like for magazines, books, and all that. It just gives you everything. All right. It gives you everything. And, you know, sometimes you want that, but sometimes like I only want newspaper articles that were published after 2018. All right. And you can do that with these other databases. All right. Another good one while I'm on this site, Academic OneFile. It's actually the first one. But I really think, depending on your topic, most of what you will use or most of what you can use, you can get from those other sites, opposing viewpoints and context and points of view. All right. So this one is we'll just and then you can mess around with your search options, but I just want peer-reviewed journals, and you can click on everything you want here. What is this one? Articulo breve. Okay. All right. So it gives you a ton of options, right? And maybe you only want news articles, newspaper articles. Okay. Of course they don't have it, but it's probably under something else other than newspaper. All right. Here you go, article. So you can click on that. Okay. I don't want to waste too much time here. And you can set your date. All right. Like I only want stuff after 2018. Let's see what we get. Wow. Okay. So I would have to refine my search. That's all. All right. So OneFile is good, right? Points of view, opposing viewpoints and context, CQ researcher. And then they have some that are like really specific. All right. So explore our library. Okay. Also, Stacy. Well, I don't know what campus you guys are on, but Stacy, our Southfield librarian, Stacy Charlebois. She's awesome, man. And you know, she's available and she makes herself available you know, as much as she can. So if you have a research question, she's okay with me sharing her email address. So I'll put that in a D2L post. Okay. But all right, try to use a school library, an academic library. All right. And then if you do use Google, because sometimes you just have to, look at the credibility of your sources. Okay. Who's the author? Right? Where was it published? Meaning, like, what publication was it in? All right. What's the author's background? What's the author's purpose? Right? Sometimes, you know, things are written to inform. Sometimes, you know, they're written to push an idea, right? Think about it. Okay. Thursday, I'll give you a few more strategies for evaluating your sources, but again, I keep, you know, harping on OCC's library, man, not just because they pay me. Oh, yeah. All right. We'll wrap up with this. Yeah. Annotated bibliography. All right. And I know you're all still working on that. I'm actually looking for my examples. Oh man, get rid of all these files at the end of the semester. There you go. Okay. Annotated bibliography says 5, but it should be 3 for you all. 5 is my Comp 2 class. All right. And it's just a piece of your, or a couple pieces of your research. All right. So from last week, I was talking about like meditation in public schools, and this is some of the research from that. So it's just like, it's the bibliographic entry. I cheated with this. I use Scribr to get this formatting right. And then underneath it, it's just it's a 3 to 4 sentence summary of whatever the article is about. Okay, and not an extensive summary. All right, just something short. Okay. Excuse me.
What did you
Annotated
say? A
bibliography.
summary? So could you say that again? You said below it, a summary of what?
Yeah, just what the article is about. No, it doesn't have to be like in great detail, like this one. Harper presents data confirming that meditation benefits teachers and students. She asserts that the practice reduces stress in teachers and helps students manage their emotions. Harper also argues against the notion that meditation in school could force religious practices on students, or that meditation is too passive of a learning strategy. Nothing longer than that. Like if you go beyond 4 sentences, that's too much. All right. So keep it between like 3 and 4 sentences. All right. So this research, it's the start of the research you're going to do for your own paper. Okay. So if I was writing this paper about meditation in public school, I would use these articles. And the other ones I'd find, of course. Okay. So now, as we wrap up, the 2 students, who submitted stuff. All right. Go ahead, get started on your research, or keep going in your research. And if you feel like you're ready, get started on your draft. Okay, get started on your draft. Even though the draft isn't due until Thursday of next week, get started. All right, get started, man. Do a little bit every day. All right. And for those of us who are still working, make sure you decide on your topic, and get that proposal in like ASAP, because I want everybody to be on the same page with this thing. Okay. Because again, like I was saying before, this is going to take us to the end of the semester, right? Which is around the corner. Okay. So that material that I just went over is in this proposing a research project module on D2L. And then there's a PDF in here. There's just more about like evaluating sources, but use an academic library. Okay.
Hey Norwood, so I had a little trouble deciding what I wanted to talk about, but I mean, like, I'm kind of like into sports, whatever. So like, I was kind of thinking like, what if I write about like, because I feel like I can explain a lot like why I think in the NFL like it's harder to win a championship than like in the NBA, because I feel like I can give a lot of examples and why I think it is, even though I think a lot of people would say in the NFL it's a lot harder. But I mean, I think some people say it's NBA, but most people say NFL. But I feel like I can give a lot of examples and explain why I think in the NFL it's like harder. So
yeah, because the argument for the NFL being harder is it's win or go home, man. Like once the playoffs start, one game. Whereas the NBA, it's best of 5, best of 7.
Yeah.
Right. So there's already like counterpoints, to argue against. I think also, and this is, I don't know, man. This is something you would have to look into, but I would think, well, it's probably the same. I don't know, man. But look at it like this. I don't know, man, because it's maybe in the NFL, like losing, like if you lose your quarterback or something, that's a game changer. That can change the entire face of your team. Whereas, in the NBA, maybe your guard goes down. All right. You can get the next person in there. But
And the guard can come back at a later time, you know,
Yeah.
they have more time. If it's only one game, like, and you lose an important player, you're done,
too.
basically.
That's true
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So
so-
that's a good topic. Yeah. It's a good topic. Yeah. That's Dan Marino, man. Like he's heralded as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time to never win a championship.
Champion, yeah.
Never win a championship. All right, like statistically, one of the greats. But sometimes it matters, man. Like they look at your fingers, man. Ask Charles Barkley.
Yeah. One of the
That's
yeah,
real.
great basketball players too that won.
Yeah,
People don't even talk about Dan Marino anymore, too. If you think
Right.
about it,
he's not
they
even
don't
in
bring
the
him up in the
in the
conversations.
yeah. Part of it is, I think when they do talk about Marino, they talk about how great he was, but that's always
But-
part of the conversation too.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
well, he
yeah.
didn't win a ring.
Hmm.
Did not win a ring. All right. So yeah, that's a good topic, Amir. Okay. And I was thinking of more because I don't really follow basketball like that, but I'm a football fan. All right. So and I would take the opposite approach, man. I think football is harder. So that's certainly debatable. Okay, certainly debatable.
Like, what do you think would be like a thesis I like could use? Can I just say like the NFL is harder to win a title in is the league that it's, or you have to explain why?
Just say it's
Well,
more
it's
challenging,
more
to
yeah.
win the title. And I think you can also say, like, if you're arguing for the NBA, you can say, it's often thought that winning a championship in the NFL is harder, but it's actually harder to win the NBA finals. Okay. Even harder than that to repeat, right?
Yeah, in the NFL, yeah, hasn't been a repeat champion since what, Brady in the early 2000s when he was picked. Yeah,
And I think it's like when you're the champion, everybody wants to give you their best.
it's true.
Or it's easy to put it in cruise control after you've won the championship.
Well, and it depends on like contracts and things like
That
that.
too.
So
Yeah.
if you can retain the exact same team, it's highly unlikely that
Absolutely.
you would be able to have everyone.
Yeah. Because sometimes they do bust up teams, after the championship. Okay. It's a good topic. Okay, it's a good topic. All right. So I will get this recording posted. All right. And you all, keep working on your proposals if you haven't gotten them in. But yeah, get them in ASAP. Right. And then for those of you who need to get them in, submit them and I can give you some thoughts on Thursday about those. All right. So have a good day, folks. Okay. The fog is lifted. All right. Sun's out.
Oh wait, Nora, can I talk to you about something else too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you too if I could.